so much of that legacy addiction to direct response revenue attribution tends to still exist in leadership teams. It's because that's the level of abstraction that leadership teams typically look at. They want to see the broad charts. They want to see MQLs, SALs, pipeline revenue, things like, oh, but you have to look at it from like a cohort perspective. What does that mean, right? Oh, well, you have to understand there's more objectives. Okay. Other things help with organic and direct. So all the things that we typically say to try and justify budget allocation away from direct response revenue attribution plays, they're often rejected by the CFO or the CEO. And that's part of what also contributes to keeping things small.
Branded search looks like it's your best channel, so you cut programs that weren't self-reporting, pour the money into the ones that were, and those channels are just cashing in on demand something else created. The dashboard gets healthier, your business gets weaker. On this week's episode, we have Tony Flores, and his argument is that the number one thing keeping B2B SaaS teams small is attribution. Not bad hires, not bad budgets, attribution. Let's get into it. Tony, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Excited to have you.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we're pumped. It's been too long since we've had a nice, fun, exciting conversation about marketing and just talking in general. I know we're going to hang out soon, but yeah, man, I'm pumped. I know you just sent out this awesome article, which we'll link below, about attribution. That has been just it's been a fun and divulging conversation for any marketers, owners, business leaders, whatever. But yeah, I'm excited to get into the depths with you here. So
but yeah, just your contribution as well.
Yeah, right? Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah, but that was nice, dude. I thought your angle added a little bit of depth to it. So I'm excited to talk about that as well.
Yeah, no, anytime we can get a chance to collaborate, I'm all about it. So
yeah, for sure.
But before we jump into this, just give everyone the 30,000 foot of Tony. Give me the elevator pitch of who Tony Flores is. So,
okay. So let's do it from a professional perspective. I've been working in B2B SaaS since like 2012, 2013 at this point. The first 7 or 8 years of that career were in a bunch of different in-house positions. Mostly your head of growths, your marketing manager, your head of marketing, all the sort of like startup head of marketing, first marketing titles that you sort of see. And then I think it was like in 2020, actually, someone from Refine Labs, an agency that works specifically with B2B SaaS companies, reached out to me because I had demand gen in my title. And as we know, Refine Labs and Chris Walker was really evangelizing the demand gen narrative at that time. And so, someone from the company reached out. I went through. I got hired, and it was at that point that I realized, there's a very serious reason why revenue attribution is not providing consistent results for B2B SaaS companies that find themselves in competitive crowded categories. And it was at Refine Labs that I started really, I'd say, getting into my next chapter of what it meant to be a marketing professional, where it was no longer just about revenue attribution correlations and trying to make actions based on that, but it was really about understanding the wants, needs, and desired outcomes of the audience that you're advertising to. Maybe call it traditional marketing, but it wasn't something that I had really heard a lot about in my career starting in SaaS from 2012 onward. It was very revenue attribution focused. So while at Refine Labs in this agency space, we were operating with revenue attribution in place, but also this broader perspective on how do we help our clients be more relevant and useful and compelling to their audience, and what role do search and social play in that? And so it was like drinking through a fire hose, right? Almost like getting released from the matrix, being like, this is why the whole world didn't make sense to me, even though the numbers were supposed to make it make sense. And so since then, I've been in 3 different agencies working in various roles: account manager, director of account teams, some in-house specialist roles, like trying to build certain products and this and that. Always had side clients, but recently stepped away from my latest in-house role in order to solve problems for B2B SaaS companies from a go-to-market context that I'm starting to believe are very, very difficult to solve from within an agency environment. So this fractional route that I've been taking is less about me being an account manager and more stepping in to the company and trying to solve those systemic issues that are resulting in bad agency or go-to-market performance first place, right? So that's sort of where we're at and where we find ourselves today. Love it, man.
Yeah, I mean, agencies are obviously evolving a ton. You know, we could spend an hour on that, but I'll digress. But yeah, I mean, attribution itself makes or breaks agency relationships. You know, how you're telling a story, you know, how you're framing results. You know, we'll get into that right now, I'm sure. But yeah, it seems like the integrity of attribution is both murky, but also it's like, how can we be ethical, right? It's like,
that's a good way to put
it. Businesses need results, right? And marketers want to prove their value, you know? So I think this is super important from both the agency, the account manager, the person itself, but also like, you know, so yeah, I'm excited to get into it, man. And I loved your piece. So if people want to dive in deeper, we can, we'll link that below. But your core argument that you were framing in the piece was around the need to validate individual marketing and sales decisions through revenue attribution, right? And that's how businesses stay small and effective. So teams optimize programs that they haven't finished building. Attribution stops being a scoreboard and becomes the thing that caps growth. So it can be kind of that through line to pull apart on the, you know, things. So you put it pretty bluntly, though, that your core claim is that every decision itself is really needs to be self-justified through attribution. Is it showing up on the dashboard, right? So make the case. I guess my first, where I wanted to start with you is, can you help me make it in more plain terms? Like, why does that specific behavior shrink a company?
Sure. And in some cases it shrinks. In many cases, it just prevents you from growing, right? It all comes down to how you're utilizing that data and what sort of decisions that you're making. But before we jump into that, let's take a step back and look at what, at least from my experience, are what good, effective go-to-market motions in B2B SaaS companies, what they tend to look like, and what ineffective go-to-market motions in B2B SaaS companies tend to look like, right? So let's start with what effective go-to-market motions look like. And again, this is just anybody from an outside perspective looking in could go in and look at these companies and see these correlations, right? So I'm talking about the Clays and the Collabs and these other companies that are like category leading, bid prolific, funding rounds, growing, right? Yeah. Their go-to-market motions tend to have three things in common. The first is that they tend to have a lot going on, right? So they have more than search and social going on. They have outbound, they have content themes, they have support programs, they have community engagement, they have solution demonstration, they have efforts to build distinctive and memorable brands, they have market research, they have all these things that are there. Well, let me say that different. They have lots of things going on, right? So, and the reason why is because a healthy portfolio of marketing activities covers multiple objectives, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a second. Very rarely can you find a single channel like search, or even a combo of like search and direct mail or something like that, that will effectively cover all of these objectives necessary to create the conditions that build preference over time, right? So just fundamentally, it's hard to build an effective program if you don't have multiple things going on, right? The second thing is that those programs are built and maintained over time, right? So they don't just become these programs that dip in for 90 days, fail to get points on the board, and then they're out. They're built because they're contributing to a broader portfolio of objectives, and they are designed with a specific goal in mind, right? And so they get introduced, they get maintained, they get optimized, they get built, they get embedded, and soon they become durable contributions to the company's broader competitive advantage. They almost become part of the features and capability set because they didn't just show up and disappear. They're maintained, they're improved, they're oriented around target customer needs and outcomes, and this happens over and over time, right? So it's not just multiple programs, but the programs that exist improve and get compounded further, right? And then the third, I would say, is that you can see this whenever you do an audit of these go-to-market programs. They're all rowing in the same direction, right? It doesn't feel like they're all interpreting the competitive strategy differently and then putting messages and content themes and programs out that all kind of feel disparate and vague. You can see the mission, you can see the vision, you can see the calls to action, you can see the consistency throughout all these different programs being delivered, which is consistency throughout the customer journey. So in my experience, those are the three things that great B2B SaaS companies have in common from a go-to-market motion, just very high level. Now, going back to attribution specifically, my claim here is that if there is an approach to decision-making that works against those three things occurring at a B2B SaaS company, then that approach to decision-making needs to get really reviewed and considered as to what role it plays in our day-to-day decision-making. In my opinion, revenue attribution, when executed at the wrong stage of the business's life cycle and without the correct boundaries for ideation around it, it results in the opposite of those things happening. It results in very, very small programs or very small portfolios with programs dipping in and out before they have a chance to contribute, and that everyone's sort of like acting individually because they have revenue attribution metrics to suggest what correlates. Right. So there's no need to collaborate because search can go show their MQL contribution in platform, and events can go show their MQL contribution in platform. There's no reason to connect those dots because we all have revenue attribution reports. Right. So the claim that it keeps companies small and ineffective is that it prevents the activities necessary for that company to become big and effective. Right. That's essentially what the claim is here. And from that point forward, we should review. Not saying it's a bad thing, but we should review how we make decisions with this data and what trade-offs we're making in the process. And I think that's the blind spot that a lot of people miss.
So, okay. So you rolled that into optimizing before the program exists. One of the lines you had in your piece was optimizing before the program exists is kind of the thesis. So what does that looks like inside of a fledgling department, and why is it so easy for smart teams to fall into it?
Sure. So I think the easiest answer here would be like, let's talk about a reach objective, right? Let's say we're going to go into LinkedIn, right? And we're going to we drank the Kool-Aid. We recognize we have to do more than revenue attribution and direct response. And we're going to start building a distinctive and memorable brand through reach, right? We go into LinkedIn. We add $5,000 to a reach campaign. We run it for 30 days, and then we review it for impact on pipeline and revenue. And then we start making changes to it based on that, changing the audience, changing the targeting, narrowing or expanding content themes. When I say that revenue attribution causes us to optimize the program before it exists, is because it makes us feel as though we have conclusive data about performance before there is any sort of reasonable expectation that we could have changed hearts and minds or even influenced perception during that period. So on a program level, it happens whenever you're trying to make a statement of impact too early. On a portfolio level, it's what I said beforehand, right? You wind up you wind up not building out this portfolio of programs contributing to the broader set of objectives necessary. Because once you introduced search, you start with this mindset that search should definitely work on its own. And until we can pick the lock on this via revenue attribution, all these other top of funnel things aren't going to matter. Right. So it's an operating philosophy. It's an operating philosophy as much as it is just an incorrect application of the data. And this isn't something I really talked about, but I have a client right now that is absolutely convinced that search should be an ROI channel for them in isolation of everything else. Based on revenue attribution. We're going to HubSpot landing pages, and we have Hockey Stack, and we have all these different kinds. It's not working, right? And it's because it's getting managed in isolation. So anyway, going back to that, revenue attribution best practices, they tend to encourage you to optimize programs and portfolios before they have an opportunity to actually make a contribution to your motion in the beginning, right? And so that's sort of what I meant by that particular claim. You get started with optimization too soon, and you step over effectiveness in the meantime.
Wow. No, I mean, we see it happen too often. You look at the HubSpot pipeline, you're looking at the attribution, first touch, last touch. No, I hear it. So it's become almost too predictable. But yeah, you laid out that loop of the cycle as well is like launch, underfund, run it a quarter, nothing shows, so you kill it and move on. So like walk me through what happens in that cycle and where damage happens. Is it underfunding? Is it premature judgment? Like you talked about, previously, optimizing before the program exists. Like how do those two coalesce?
Well, all the problems there, like you launch a program, you can underfund it. That's a problem. You run it for a quarter or two. That's probably not long enough. Attribution shows nothing. You have an incorrect measurement approach. You kill it, and you move on. Right. So the cycle itself, to me, is the standard cycle you see when a company says, we're going to implement revenue attribution as our standard approach to our day-to-day decision-making and our statement of impact. Right. Yeah. So it can get messed up at any stage of that. But I guess to answer your question, the main problem with this is that we wind up concluding that a tactic or a program or a channel or a motion is ineffective. Yeah. When in reality, it could and should be a contributing component to the broader portfolio that will work together to create effectiveness. Right. And so going back to reach, right, which is sort of like a big topic, I'd say, in-house and at agencies, because reach, everyone sort of acknowledges that they need reach, right? Yeah. Everyone sort of acknowledges that they need to build a distinctive and memorable brand and get in front of your audience consistently over time. But anytime I audit a program, you can see that there is such a small amount of budget going toward that. And when revenue attribution as your primary means of making a statement of impact is in place, it makes sense. And it follows this pattern, because you go up to the executive and you say, well, we achieved reach of 100,000, right, with a 7x frequency. And they say, well, where's the impact on pipeline and revenue or even MQLs, right? Yeah. And we don't know how to answer that, right? And so it's not necessarily revenue attribution causing that. It's the marketer or the practitioner's ability to explain what those numbers mean relative to the abstracted bigger picture that you're trying to achieve with that. Yeah. And when that gets rejected, you just wind up in the revenue attribution cycle. And this is what it looks like. And it's what keeps things small, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wrote a piece about your take on attribution or attributable versus contributing a few months ago. So I want to go into this a little bit further, but you talked, I'm going to mess up his name, Charlie. Put a line in your piece, but what's attributable is not what is contributing, right? Yeah. So CFOs have a role to play in the room when it comes to attribution. So how do you get a CFO or a founder to internalize that when the dashboard says branded search is the hero? Like, talk to me about that, because it's like they want to see the return. They want to see, I put $1 in, I got $2 out, right? Yeah. But how do you get the CFO usually or founder to internalize that?
It's the fundamental problem of our industry right now, right? So we have, who was I talking to about this the other day? It might have been Braden, but there's for the last 10 years, we've sort of like, or however long attribution's been in my world, it's been like 10 or 15 years, right? So I'll just say for like the last 10 or 15 years, we've had this operating philosophy that you can track everything very specifically to pipeline. Yeah. Right. And there was a long period of time where nobody was challenging that. Right. Yeah. And then one day people started challenging it, saying, hey, we forgot about marketing in this process. And so the problem is that now there's people like you and I and other practitioners of this marketing art that say, look, we need to find the balance between direct response and brand development. We need to recognize that there's short-term and we need to recognize that there's long-term and all those kind of things. The problem is that so much of that legacy addiction to direct response revenue attribution tends to still exist in leadership teams. Like that's all there is to it. And it's because that's the level of abstraction that leadership teams typically look at, right? They want to see the broad charts. They want to see MQLs, SALs, pipeline revenue, things like, oh, but you have to look at it from like a cohort perspective. That's okay. What does that mean? Right? Oh, well, you have to understand there's more objectives and like we're looking at organic and direct. Okay. fucking other things help with organic and direct, right? So all the things that we typically say to try and justify budget allocation away from direct response revenue attribution plays, they're often rejected by the CFO or the CEO. And that's part of what also contributes to keeping things small. Because if I've got clients that work with me because they're like, I believe in what you have to say, but I cannot get this point across to the CFO and the CEO. And so honestly, for me, it's not one I don't have a thing that I look at where I'm like, well, here's the visual that shows you that you're crushing your future brand development in exchange for prioritizing short-term revenue outcomes. What you have to do, and this is something that I talk to agency account managers quite a bit in terms of those that want to sort of up level their game, is you need to be able to meet the client, in this case, your CFO or your CEO, where they're at and help them see what they're wanting to see while you are also accomplishing the things you know need to be accomplished to make that revenue attribution number keep going up and to the right. Because ultimately we know that even if a CEO or a CFO says it all needs to be attributable to pipeline and revenue through some sort of first touch attribution UTM or something like that, we know it's not going to wind up working. But if we can't win that argument, once it doesn't work, it's not like they're going to go, oh, we should have listened. They're going to go, it's not working. And you're the one at the helm of this, right? So one thing that has been hugely helpful to me and some of the account managers or marketers that I've had conversations with regarding this is we have to get good at meeting the client or the stakeholder where they're at in terms of what they want, but also working to accomplish our goals that we know are ultimately going to support what they're trying to see there, right? So a great example I can give you is this, right? Very, very easy one. Working at an agency, had a client that was like, we want to allocate LinkedIn budget to a gated ebook, and we want to make those gated ebook assets sales team leads, right? We just want to MQL them and move them on because we have an MQL volume issue. Things that we can argue to death about why that's just a fucked up thing to do. But at the same time, I've got a client that wants to do this. And I've sat there with watching account managers go, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. And it creates this tumultuousness to where a CFO or a COO are going to shut up, just do it, right? Like it creates a difficult relationship and it makes it difficult to actually get across what you're trying to get across and get to the point that you're trying to get to. So in that situation, what I would recommend is run the ebook, gate it, report on conversions, report on pipeline and revenue progression, but do so in a way that that ebook is still filling a gap in your broader marketing portfolio. Run it on a reach objective, use it as a component of brand engagement and solution demonstration, accomplish your goals with the things you know that you need to get done to create these outcomes while still meeting the executive or the client where they're at in terms of what they need to see. It is and this is something, call this an old man axiom, right? I've been in this game for a long time. You are always going to lose that battle. Unless the CEO or the CFO is coming in and they've already philosophically aligned and they're like, we agree with you and now we need help getting there. You're not going to come in as a third party or a marketing coordinator and change how the CFO attributes revenue. You're just not, right? So the best way that you can stabilize your job, maximize your likelihood of client success, whatever your outcome is get their job done as well. Get revenue attribution up and running. Show the report, show the limitations, make statements about it, manage a high tempo growth testing cadence that shows that you're pulling levers, but also make sure that you're accomplishing your broader long-term objectives in the process, right? It's not one or the other. That's less about how do you change their mind and more about how do you live within this environment as a marketing professional when you're always going to run up against this and you're always going to have a low success rate. So much of what makes a successful agency client relationship is philosophical alignment. And yes, there is academic math that says these numbers are correct and these numbers are wrong. But even if you have that, there is an interpretation factor in this subjective practice of marketing that requires a lot of philosophical alignment, or else the relationship will just deteriorate, typically in like 3 to 6 months. So yeah, you can layer on it. show them the platform data and the numbers that suggest the math isn't working at their high level. That's one, right? Yeah. Add other reports like a share of search external, so you can make a claim that marketing is working independently of sales performance. There's things like that. But ultimately, if you're trying to persuade a CFO or a CEO or an existing client that they're thinking about revenue differently or wrong or incorrectly or in a way that's limiting, you could do it. It happens, right?
Yeah.
But I'm more about like maximizing your likelihood of success. And most of the time, the best way to do it is go, you're so right. Let me get those revenue attribution reports up and running for you, and then go do marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
This is definitely a sidebar, but I feel like agencies that decide to be small on purpose are going to win. And
yeah.
The reason the why behind that is I know enough agencies that are like under $2 million a year or even $1 million a year where the account manager was the sales rep, and like the sales rep also managed the account, which I get. It doesn't scale, but like sales didn't sell them something and then hand them off to this account manager who knows nothing about their sales goals or maybe wasn't in the selling room, right?
Yeah.
And you see it all the time. It's like there's account manager, or there's these marketing agencies that are 10 million, 20 million a year. Their churn rate is 6 months. You know, sales is killing it, but account management can't keep accounts, because they're so philosophically unaligned when they actually get into it, right? So
that level that you're talking about, at that level, the playbook for account managers is so structured that they get into onboarding, they're going, we're going to now look at MQLs and also share of search over 6 months. And the account and the new client goes, no, I don't like that. Yeah. And the account manager's like a deer in the headlights. Where do you go from there?
Exactly.
Where do you go from there? Right. And it's a very frustrating place to be for an account manager who's being told, be proactive, be thoughtful, look under stones, do this, do that. And then to have somebody in front of you that just does not believe in anything that you're saying. And to your point, it's tough because, again, let's look at attribution, right? Like sales looks like it's crushing it. Executive evangelism on LinkedIn looks like it's crushing it. Clients are pissed, right? Clients are pissed. Account managers are stressed. Oh God, I can't tell you how many account managers in the last 5 years have told me that they are so stressed because they have no idea what's getting saddled on top of them whenever a new onboarding client comes, or expectations are all over the place, huge, massive gaps in reporting and interpretation. Yeah, we can do a whole podcast on that one, dude, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome, man. This is great. This is juicy. I love this. I love where we're headed here. I'm going to skip over here because I think this coalesces more where we're headed, but mature versus kind of these fledgling operating models. So you drew a hard line. Mature portfolios can be evaluated incrementally, while the fledgling ones can't. So how does a leader honestly diagnose which one they're running? And
that's a great question. I think an example, right, is okay. So I'll tell you how I measure it, right? Because this kind of comes back to the practice, right? But for me, everywhere I go, I bring 5 objectives for a go-to-market motion: comprehensive audience reach, distinctive and memorable branding, audience engagement, solution demonstration, direct response via revenue attribution. Still in there, right? Yeah. It's just not the only thing. If you have a portfolio of activities, right? And I'm not just talking about marketing, right? I'm talking about, you've got sales programs, marketing programs, customer success programs, product programs, ELT programs. You've got a set of programs that are bringing your business and your product out into the market.
Yeah.
You need to have an objective look at those and say, which of these 5 objectives am I really covering? Are you running basically direct response search and retargeting and conversation ads for some reason, right? Then you're not building a distinctive and memorable brand. You're not engaging your audience. You're not demonstrating your solution. You're not reaching your out market consistently or comprehensively, right? Yeah. So a fledgling program has nothing to do with the amount of programs that you're running. Yeah. It has to do with how well you're covering your objectives. right? Because if you're not covering your objectives and you begin direct response revenue attribution, there's an extraordinarily low likelihood that those decisions will result in you covering your objectives, right? So that's the line that I draw is if you're covering your objectives, you have a mature program. If you're not covering your objectives, you have an immature program. And what I do for my clients is I say, how quickly can we bring you to a mature program, right? How quickly can we figure out your point A, assign your objective weights to it, and then figure out what we're going to introduce to bring your program up to maturity. And that is my onboarding out of onboarding test, right? I'm not gonna be like, today we're going to move the form to the left, right? I'm not doing that. I'm building you out your marketing program. Right. And then that becomes our baseline A/B test. This is what your marketing program, go to market program was. This is what it is. We're going to let it run. Right. During that time period, you can begin direct response revenue attribution. So look at this. So this is the example I give. Right. Again, I'll give Clay. Right. Because Clay's been doing their go to market team webinars and it's all super duper compelling. And it's really top of mind for me. So Clay is in a position where, let's say they're running a target account list. They have a million things going on. Right. And they're saying, we want to do this new marketing program. We now want to add this new webinar or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
There are resources where you can isolate part of your list, send them emails, show that ad treatment to that same part of the list. Right. Do that in a really short time period. Right. And say, hey, we ran this for this time period across this significant size of our audience. And then after we paused that 3 to 6 months later, that cohort, performed at the pipeline and revenue at this level.
Yeah.
For a company like Clay, it needs to be a huge, massive swing, right? Because it needs to be a commensurate input with the size of your company. But the point is at that level, you can arguably hold out a group, right? Run a treatment. And if it has this is another point from Charlie, it has to have a short time frame to make an impact. It can't be over a year. But if you do that, holdouts and revenue attribution best practices can help you build out a more effective portfolio, right? Yeah. It's limiting and keeps you small and useless if you do that when you're too small.
Yeah.
Right. And it keeps you way too focused on direct response. And you wind up, again, running branded search and retargeting and some crazy, ridiculous, small outbound motion with your sales team. Right. And so that line between fledgling and mature, I think it's structured in your objective coverage. It's a little bit subjective, but I think a good marketing leader can say we're doing this relative to our context. And if we are, then how we build from there, I think revenue attribution plays more of a role, or MMM or holdouts or whatever other thing is. The point is don't optimize what isn't built yet, right? Yeah. That's the whole point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great.
This How is you awesome. Doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm loving this. We're going deep, big pictures, into the weeds here. I love it. I wanted to kind of start to land the plane here in the next 4 to 5 minutes, but measuring by role, not revenue. You talked about that a bit right now in the piece, and you are arguing that each program should be measured against the role in the portfolio, then the portfolio judged as one unit against business outcomes, right? So you talked about that, what does that scorecard look like on a Monday? What replaces which channel drove pipeline, So,
Sure. That's an interesting question. So we all know kind of the original objectives and key results framing, right? OKR, right? And so for me, I don't know if I necessarily adhere to that framework of thinking exactly as I think it was the Google guys that put it together. But I do like this idea of objectives and key results, because I feel like objectives and key results give a go-to-market team a specific thing to reach toward, right? Yeah. And they don't have to understand the broader competitive strategy or the consumer behaviors and tendencies that are driving that. They just know what they need to achieve from a go-to-market purchasing perspective. Yeah. So my objectives don't change, but my key results do based on the context of the company. Some companies have target account lists. Some don't. Some have PLG. Some are sales led, right? So really it's the objectives offer the grounding, but then the key results are what give the team direction. So for example, one of those is achieve comprehensive audience reach, right? Mm-hmm. If you have, let's say, a target account, let's say you got something like a primer. You don't have a Zoom info, right? That shows the accounts and coordinates with. Let's say you have a primer because that's your situation, right?
Yeah.
And you push your target account list out to LinkedIn. It was 300,000 in primer. Now it's 100,000, right? In LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
One of those key results could be 30 to 40% audience penetration on a 30 to 40 day basis, right?
Yeah.
Right. Because by doing that, I know that within LinkedIn, relative to this objective of comprehensive audience reach, I am likely finding the balance between making an impact within that audience and spending way too much that each dollar doesn't give me any more incremental reach, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want it to be 50% because then I would have to go look and maybe my CPMs and my costs are ridiculous because I overshot it. Also don't want it to be 5% because there's so much more of my audience I could be reaching, right? So key result is going to be 30 to 35% audience penetration on a 30 to 45 day basis in this audience, right?
Yeah.
And then you go through the objectives and define the key results accordingly. One client I have right now has an ongoing webinar program, right? It's a direct response webinar program.
Yeah.
That's going to be a complicated one because we're going to try and measure according to direct response revenue attribution, but we also know that there has to be some sort of ongoing engagement and priming of the pump before that webinar show up CTA goes, right? So that would be one of those where we need to kind of layer in the two reporting systems.
Yeah.
Right, where we're saying, okay, we're going to look at it from a direct response revenue attribution perspective. But if this webinar tanks, we're not going to pull the plug on the other things that build the objective set.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to optimize for revenue attribution where we can, but that's not going to result in us only doing those things. We know we have to engage. We know we have to demonstrate. We know we have to reach. Right? Let's optimize for direct response, but let's not break down the portfolio in the meantime. And that is what happens more often than not with this revenue attribution thing. So that's what I mean by like you said, build the programs, then optimize the portfolio. Stick with the objectives that we know are true and hold the test of time, but develop key results relative to your infrastructure that put some tangibility for an ELT and executive leadership team to say, oh, we're making progress toward this operating philosophy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so hard to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, especially when you're looking at those KPIs, right? So I feel that.
Cool.
The last thing I wanted to talk to you about, Tony, and to just kind of land the plane here totally is AI search. So, I mean, we're hearing this word zero-click marketing. AI answers are erasing kind of trackable intent at the top of the funnel, but talk to me about your take on this. If there's no click to attribute, does that attribution first model kind of break down? So what's your take on that?
Yeah. It's always broken down, right? There was, even when the first click was ever attributed from Google or whoever put that out there first, it's not like all that other stuff that build brand distinctiveness and memorability wasn't happening already, right?
Yeah.
So AI is not going to be the reason why attribution breaks down. It's just going to be a further thing that demonstrates the fundamentals of attribution without the right boundaries on it for ideation was never an effective operating philosophy to begin with, right? Yeah. In terms of AI, are you talking specifically like Google,
Gemini, Perplexity, any of those? Yeah.
You're not talking necessarily about search clicks going down because there's more AI results. You're talking about like an AI platform like ChatGPT running ads.
Yeah, correct.
It's I mean, honestly, dude, I probably won't be the best guy for this one because I just don't care at all. But from a search perspective, AI is taking our clicks. All right, then adjust your budget accordingly and move on. Right? Yeah. It's like going, Albertson's taking away one of our shelves. Well, use the shelf that they let you use and then fucking move on. Right? You don't have to try and force this thing into the role you want it to play. I have so many clients that are like, we want to spend 50 grand on LinkedIn or on Google ads a month. And I'm like, we can spend 10 before you're just pissing away money. And so there's that component of it. And then I don't know. I just, the same reason why I don't think many isolated direct response plays work well in broad competitive B2B SaaS categories where sales cycles are insane and there's long time site frames and all that kind of stuff. Like maybe somebody will AI your category term and your ad pops up and it's the same stuff. Build the brand before you get there, right? Everyone knows who should be on that list. Play it as a direct response play if you want. Yeah, that's really, I don't honestly, I don't, when every single time anyone's ever been like, what's our ChatGPT strategy? I'm like, I'll help you with that once we figure out how to make what we have now work.
Yeah. First things first.
And it's never gotten there yet. So
yeah.
God, I don't care about it at all.
I'm getting there. I'm almost where you're at, man. That's great. Well, cool, Tony,
this is fun, dude. I appreciate this, and I appreciate the thoughtful run through of the article and the points as well, man. It was a great conversation to be having.
Yeah, I love it, man, and I really appreciate you taking the time here. So, I'll link your article below, but I think we're gonna have to run another episode back here in a few weeks or so, because there was a few rabbit trails that I really wanted to dive down, but
yeah, man.
But yeah, if you're a leader out there listening, struggling with revenue attribution, B2B, drop a comment. But we'd love to hear where people are at, and I'll link back to the original LinkedIn post Tony made on this. So if you want to chime into the conversation, it's already starting to have a little bit of buzz on it. But Tony, thank you, sir. Appreciate you again for being on.
Thank you, Scott. This was good, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right.